Your success will trigger jealousy. So I wanted to make this separate analysis talking a little bit more about how your success can become triggering, especially for people in your immediate circle and your immediate environment. And the reason why I wanted to elaborate on this topic a little bit more is because with my most recent post talking specifically about Valeria Marquez's case, I realized that there were some overlapping similarities when it came to Valeria's case as well as Selena Quintanilla's case. But I appreciate you all putting in the comments that there were also some similarities even with Shanquella Robinson's case. And as I stepped back and I observed all three of these ladies' stories, their cases, I realized that their attacks came at the brink of a significant breakthrough. So for example, with Valeria Marquez's case, maybe her friends or her associates, they might have been triggered, when she became a social media influencer. And maybe that triggering began to fester as she became a beauty influencer as well. And she started to become more, well known. But when she also started to establish herself as a businesswoman, and showed exceptional acumen in that regard by opening up her own salon. And at such a young age, I feel like that these were moments that kind of led to a point of no return for people who were around her because she kept reaching new heights. And for people who are stagnant in your immediate circle, you reaching new heights is actually, it's offensive to them. With Shanquella Robinson's case, I believe that the people who she might have been calling her friends, maybe they were utilizing her for benefits because to my understanding, Shanquella was also someone who was reaching for new heights and she was pursuing credentials to, become successful in her professional field, her lane. And when you're around people who want to reap benefits off of your success, but at the same time, it's a reminder that they're stagnant, that can also lead to some, negativity and, some kind of physical attack. Also with Selena Quintanilla's case, it's important to note this. She was a person who was the jack of all trades and she wore so many different hats. But her attack happened right when she was crossing over to become a mainstream artist. So be mindful of individuals who are showing you significant red flags when you're at the brink of a breakthrough. Another thing that I noted is this. A lot of the time, people aren't able to perceive how intense these envious red flags are because to them achieving, that new thing on their to-do list is a stepping stone to their ultimate goal. But other people in your immediate environment are internalizing what you perceive as a stepping stone as milestones. And this is where these sneak attacks, these physical attacks start to become prevalent because people they can't fathom the fact that you keep reaching new levels. And especially for my babies on my channel, who you're high achievers, you're go-getters, you're resilient, you're tenacious. You're used to knocking things off of your to-do list because you hold yourself to a high standard. You don't even understand that all of these things that you're doing are actually milestones to other people. And the reason why you pass it off is because you're working towards a bigger goal or you're constantly holding yourself to a new standard. Okay, I achieved that one thing. Now I need to move on to the next thing. You're constantly making moves. You're not complacent. But there are people in your immediate environment who are complacent. And you're taking your success lightly when you shouldn't be, especially when you're in the company of people who are stagnant in their life. There needs to be some cutting ties. There needs to be some shifting around when it comes to your circle, when you realize that there's a mismatch situation. Now, something else that was prevalent to me as I was revisiting all three of these beautiful young ladies' cases was proximity. So with the Selena Quintanilla case, she actually cut off her perpetrator and was lured into meeting up with her perpetrator for a final discussion to gain some insight as far as why this person betrayed her. With Valeria Marquez's case, she wasn't lured into it, but they waited until she was isolated in her salon and then gave her, some items and things like that to get her defenses down in order to attack her or to unalive her. Same thing with Shanquella Robinson's case. She was lured into a trip on foreign territory where there was no one around her, and then she was attacked, beaten to the point to where she was unalived and left for who knows what in, a completely different space, different from, where they were all acquainted, their family and everything. So I want to break down these insidious invitations by reading a couple of excerpts in the books that I reference all the time on this channel, because it's super important to become familiar with these tactics, because it appears that they're playing from the same playbook. And when you are reaching a new level, I feel this. The reason why people are trying to lure you in is because they've acknowledged the fact that you all are not on the same playing field anymore. You've reached a new pinnacle of success, and in order for them to gain that proximity or to regain that proximity, they have to lure you into a compromising state to get you out of here. And I'm going to go ahead and read from those excerpts to provide some additional context. So the first excerpt I'm going to read from is titled The Insidious Invitation, and it reads, envious individuals often employ strategies to gain insight into their targets, carefully gauging the best attack mode. Invitations, enthusiastic or flattering, must be scrutinized before acceptance. These individuals use compliments or suggestions to engage with you more closely. However, they aim to push you out of your comfort zone, lower your defenses, and analyze what drives or influences you. Such invitations also encourage you to inadvertently reveal how you conduct yourself and who you align with. All of this information is used to craft an effective strategy against you. Now, the next excerpt that I want to read from in another book is titled The Big Reveal, aka Sneak Attack, and it reads, this is a tactic that often reveals someone who is envious of you and may completely blindside you. Whether it be you don't know the individual or you had no idea you were on their radar. The big reveal often occurs after a sneak attack, where a known enemy or envious individual pairs up with someone who you have no idea doesn't like you or is envious of you. Since it is a sneak attack, it may be difficult to avoid or know exactly when it will occur. However, the preemptive measure to take is to always anticipate an attack from the person whom you have sensed or has proven to be envious of you. Always remember, words may fail, but actions don't lie. Another excerpt I want to read from in the same book states, there are two forms of company you cannot afford to keep, a parasite and a snake. A parasite is a liability because they seek out all that you can do for them with no intent of reciprocating. However, a snake is extremely detrimental. A snake is more difficult to detect as bad company because they do not mind reciprocating. A parasite is an agent of jealousy, but a snake is an agent of envy. So with the first few excerpts that I read from, it was describing how this chain of event happens, where people lure you into a compromising situation with the sole purpose of attacking you. However, I also felt compelled to read that last excerpt, which differentiated a parasite from a snake. And the reason being that when you are encountering or dealing with certain individuals who are showing their disdain towards you, that's more so in alignment with parasitic tendencies. Someone who is only interested in leeching off of your success and not reciprocating it. That's on a minor scale, but the storm is brewing. However, once a person has acknowledged, very similar to the stages of envy excerpt, and I strongly encourage you guys to go back and study that excerpt in the book, Green Eyes. But once a person has come to the conclusion that they cannot beat you, what they will do is they will lure you into compromising situations to where they can attack you. Very similar to a snake. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is because when you think about snakes, right? The moment that snakes become agitated, it's because they are out of their environment. Another thing to note is this. Snakes become exceptionally aggravated in the event of being in a hot environment, being in heat. And when I thought about this, I was like, wow, why is this analogy coming to my mind? Of course, there's the excerpt in the book, but I was like, why is this analogy coming to my mind when it comes to these three women? And I thought about the fact that when you think about temperature, in order for it to become hot, the temperature has to rise. So when you're talking about individuals, you're utilizing this metaphor and analogy. When you start to rise to new levels and reach new heights of success, the snakes in your environment are going to start to become uncomfortable. They're going to start to become agitated. And when you're dealing with the snake, their sneak attack is going to come at the expense of throwing you off of your path. It's going to catch you completely off guard. Hence why the book differentiated the fact that a parasite is more so an agent of jealousy. Their disdain towards you is more overt, versus a snake is more covert and calculated with their attack. So all in all, babes, as you start to reach new levels of success, be vigilant of the snakes in your circle. All right, you all, that's all that I have for this analysis. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. But of course, I want to hear you all's comments, perspectives, opinions, and your personal experiences in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next one, babes. Take care.